Good afternoon, Chris Fawcett here from the Headache and Pain Management Centre for another live video for your Tuesday. And after the response that we had last week with the pain video that we had explaining how pain works in your brain, we had a few questions about how this all is relevant to pain and basically what we do next in regards to that. So I want to talk about something that you might not understand is that our brains actually have three brains in it effectively, where basically because of the way that we are, because we're human, we have a really complex way that our brain operates, where we have a reptile brain, a mammal brain, and a human brain, which might be a little bit counterintuitive, but as I start explaining it, you'll know what I'm talking about from there. Type in below, say hello if you're there with me. I won't be able to see it because the camera's turned the other way, but I will answer your questions when we get to the end of the video. So today we're talking about the fact that our brain acts in a way that perhaps we don't quite understand. Basically, the story that I'd like to start with is what happened when they introduced plastic bags. They banned the plastic bags in the supermarket. So if you think about that, it's a really logical thing to do. You know, having plastics, not as much in the ocean. They're not killing turtles, things like that. And basically now you have to bring your own reusable bags to the supermarket. And what you would have noticed is that people kind of lost their minds when that came in. So it's actually a really basic thing to do, is just to bring your own bag to the supermarket. But for whatever reason, people were just losing their minds over it. You know, people were abusing staff, people were getting on social media and talking about how bad it was, and all these sorts of things. We're thinking, what's going on? Why is everyone so angry about something very, very small? Like it's just a small change. Why is everyone just getting so ballistic about it? Well, the answer to that is actually coming from this three brains model, which I'm about to explain. And it's actually our brains doing and playing a trick on us to actually feel angry over things that are irrational or not behave in a way that we really should, because it's actually irrational to do so, and it's our brains that are driving this. So if we have a look at this, we've actually got three types of brain. We've got a reptile brain, a mammal brain, and a human brain. So our reptile brain, if you have a think about a reptile, so like a lizard or perhaps an ant or an insect or something like that, have you ever seen an ant or an insect or a lizard smile? The answer is probably not. So what lizards and ants and reptiles and things do, basically they live, they do what they're actually designed to do. They eat, they sleep, they reproduce, and they die. There's no real emotion that's being attached to it. They just go about their daily business. Effectively, these animals, and look, if there's any animal people or neuroscientists, I know this isn't exactly correct, but you get the gist of it. Basically, those animals are on autopilot. Okay, where basically those animals just do what they do. They don't have any decision-making processes, no emotion that comes with making a decision. They just do what they do. They eat, they drink, they reproduce, and then they die. Our brains have this function as well, and it's called autopilot. The next level of awareness or in brains is what I call the mammal brain. And the difference between, say, a sheep or a dog or a horse compared to, say, a lizard or an insect in particular, is that they've got emotion, and it's actually, they've got a much more highly developed emotional center in their brain. So the mammal part of the brain is what I call the emotion part of the brain. So you can tell when a dog is happy or sad. Their tail wags, their ears up, their tails between their legs, things like that. So they have an emotional side which a lizard or an ant might not. You can't actually tell if they're emotional. Look, if there's any animal activists or vegans or things like that, don't attack me. This is just a basic summary. Don't come after me, but this is basically what happens. Now, if we think about humans actually have an extra part of the brain which other animals don't have. And yes, I know a lot of people on Facebook and Twitter don't have this part of their brain working all that optimally sometimes, but what that human brain is actually capable of doing is complex thought. Okay, so what they're able to do with complex thought is that they're able to make decisions. Okay, so they're able to make reasoned decisions using the part of the brain, the top of the brain, the frontal cortex, to make decisions. So if you have a think about, say, a lion, okay, if a person went into a lion's den and tried to steal a baby lion, do you think the lion would look at you and go, hey, look, he's a really nice fella, he's probably just wanting to look after my lion and give it a pat? Or will the lion think, I'm going to rip your face off right now and not even think about it? Okay, so the lion doesn't have any reason, it hasn't got any complex thought, it basically is going to attack. because it's based on emotion. There's no reasoned thinking from there. If we think of someone who is affected by a drug like ice or something that's taking a decision making out of the equation, they're thinking very much with emotion or with autopilot only. There's no complex thought about what's actually going on. Now, all of our brains are working all three areas all the time. And obviously our brains like to work on autopilot as much as possible because, it's actually really exhausting to think about things all the time. And so a lot of the things that we do are habitual, a lot of habits that we get into, and because basically it just becomes autopilot from there. So if I go back to the plastic bag example, what happened is that basically someone was asking us to change what we'd always done, our autopilot. So, you have to bring different bags. So what our brain was doing, or these people that were getting really, I suppose, angry or frustrated with the autopilot versus the human, is that people were being asked to bring plastic bags, but the autopilot part of the brain is going, oh, there'll be plastic bags at the supermarket, so I'll just do that. But the complex thought is going, well, yeah, bringing plastic bags is okay. So you've actually got this disagreement between your autopilot part of your brain and the complex thought part of your brain. So there's almost like a fight going on internally about, there's something that needs to change, which is the complex thought, and the autopilot, which is that you've always done. And as a result, the emotion part is kicking in because that's the thing that sort of is wedged in the middle. So you kind of feel sad or angry or emotional or, things of that nature. So that is why these people were getting really, really angry when asking for a little small change, because it's actually asking them to do something different to what the autopilot's telling them to do, even though the decision is actually quite a rational one to make, and there's this internal fight that's going on. Now, why is this important to people in pain? So when it comes to pain, if you have a think about how pain actually operates, pain happens at the autopilot level. Okay, so when you have pain happens at an autopilot level, okay? So it happens in order to protect you. You're not thinking about, oh, should I have pain right now? It just happens, okay? So pain that's normal happens at an autopilot level. So when that pain happens, basically your brain needs to go, oh, there's always an emotion that's dealt with when it comes to pain. So if you stub your toe, you're thinking, oh, gee, that hurt, ow. Or if you put your finger into a frying pan, it's like, oh, you idiot, why did you put that finger into a frying pan? So there's always an emotion that's going to be tied into when you have pain. So it goes autopilot, the pain happens, and then there's emotion that's attached to it. So I don't feel great because of that, or there are some people that actually like a bit of pain, like a marathon runner training or things of that nature, where they actually feel good that the pain is there because they're working hard or something like that. So what happens is you get the pain, you get an emotion that's attached to it, and then of course you take an action after that. Okay, so the action for most people in pain is to change their behaviour. So take the finger out of the frying pan, or put an ice pack on the foot when it gets a sprained ankle. For people that have chronic pain, if they've got pain all the time and they're not understanding why their pain is there, then basically here's what's happening. You're having the pain that's happening at the autopilot level. You're feeling bad about not having, not being comfortable by being in pain all the time. And the decision that you're making is to, well, I won't do anything today. It's too hard. I'm not going to get off the couch. I'm frightened to move. I don't want to do the vacuuming, and all of these negative type thoughts come in, which therefore goes into a negative type decision about your behaviour. And then of course that decision that's made about the pain then feeds back and confirms what the reptile brain and autopilot brain thought in the first place. So it's this cycle that just continues to happen around and around and around until such time as you end up with chronic pain. Now, what's really important to note here is that when you do have chronic pain, you're not making it up. The pain is real. The pain is there, okay? And when people are coming in to see us, it's actually because of one of two things. It's actually not because they have pain. It's actually because they don't know why the pain is there and they don't know what it is that they can do about it. Okay, so they don't know why the pain's there, don't know what it is they can do about it. Now, if we think about this model about how it all works, if there's pain, which is coming at the autopilot level, oh, gee, that hurt, there's the emotion. If you don't know why the pain's there, nor do you know what to do about it, then our brain is going to be a protective. It's going to go, well, I shouldn't do that activity, or I should stop okay? Because, you know, it's actually much safer for your brain to not do anything to risk any more damage if your brain thinks that there's damage there, right? It's actually quite a sensible thing to do. So by not doing anything, or, you know, being, if you like, conservative or resting or doing something like that, you're making the right decision rationally because, hey, you want to get out of the pain, you don't want it anymore, but it feeds into this loop to say, hey, look, there's something that's wrong. And if you don't have that gap in through here, so what you actually need is the information in through here to tell us about what the pain is doing and what it all means, to know what decision that you need to make. So if you know that, for example, from the last video, that a lot of people that have chronic pain, it's because their brain is oversensitized, their system's oversensitized, there may not be a lot of damage in the spot where it actually hurts, then they can make a different decision about what to do when they have the pain. So they have the pain, and yes, the pain is very frustrating, but if you make a different decision about what the movement should be, then there's going to be a different feedback loop going into the autopilot part of the brain. So instead of going, hey, look, this is dangerous, I won't do it, and then it's feeding into the next time when you have pain, it's like, well, it's dangerous, and it gets quicker and quicker, the signal that is. If you change it and you come back into the reptile part and start rewiring that, then basically you feel better, okay? The pain reduces because your brain is going, well, maybe this isn't so dangerous after all. You're not feeling as emotionally sort of attached to it. You're not feeling as down, depressed. You're not catastrophizing as much. You're not as fearful or as anxious, because basically you're rewiring your own brain to know why the pain is there. Having that knowledge is actually really, really important, to know why your pain is there. If you've got the knowledge, you can make the right decision about what the pain is, what the pain means, and you're not going into this constant feedback loop going, hey, look, I'm feeling bad, I'm not going to do anything, and therefore, you know, it reinforces to your brain that there's something wrong. If you've got something different happening where I've got pain, it doesn't make me feel that great, but I know that it's because my body is oversensitized. If I keep going, I know the pain will decrease, or it certainly won't damage anything or get any worse. And that rewires that autopilot brain for next time, that when you get the pain, that you can actually go, actually, this isn't so bad, and you keep getting better and better and better. So having those three parts of your brain and knowing that you have those three levels of how information is processed in your brain can help you sort of get past the, if you like, the burden of having chronic pain, because you're able to be more confident, less fearful, less anxious of movement, because you know that the brain is actually putting a signal out that is too strong for the stimulus that's going in there. So something small is causing a very big outcome. If you change your behavior because you know that that stimulus is small and the things just, and you, if you like, your system's just wound up, you can make a better decision about what the action should be. So instead of doing something passive, like taking a tablet, putting an ice pack on it, going to see a chiropractor and getting manipped, even going to see a physio and getting mobilized because it will fix it. Instead of doing that, you can actually take ownership of your pain and know what self-management strategies that you can take, whether they're physical, whether they're mental, or whether they're, or otherwise, that can actually get this system starting to wind down. Okay, so making the right decision, the right informed decision about what to do about your pain will do a lot more than putting your care into someone else's hands or an external factor's hands, because when you make the right decision, it rewires the brain and make things less and less sensitive, like I explained in the last video. Hey, I hope that's been helpful. I can delve into this a little bit more. Obviously, I could talk for hours about it, but I hope that gives you a little bit of an idea about our three brains, how our brains operate. And you see this happen all the time. So when it comes to pain, understanding how your brain operates, how it can be sensitized, and how to reprogram it so that pain isn't such a burden when you've got all of these sorts of chronic pain issues going on. If there's any more questions underneath, please type it underneath. If there's anyone that you think that this video would be useful for, please tag them underneath and get them to watch the video, because it is quite helpful. And a lot of people haven't heard that this is actually a thing before. If there's any questions, obviously you can type it underneath and I will also answer them for you, either publicly or in a private message. I hope that's been helpful, and again, if there's any questions or any suggestions for topics to talk about when it comes to headaches and chronic pain, please let me know, and we'll see you again next time for the next Facebook Live video. Take care and bye for now.